Paul Condry with the head basketball coach of the Indiana University South Bend women's basketball team. He also has a full-time day job as the athletic director here at Indiana University South Bend. Steve Bruce joining us here on RSN TV. Coach, first of all, let's talk about what you do, which is really the most important aspect of what you're doing, impacting your coaching staffs here on this fast-moving, fast-growing campus, as well as student athletes. You have a wide variety of things that fall under your hat. So let's talk about being the athletic director. This campus is alive with athletics. It's growing by leaps and bounds. And under your direction over the course of the last dozen years, it's really changed the culture and the mindset here in this local community. So let's just talk about Indiana University South Bend athletics and the direction you're going.
Okay, well, we are currently at 12 sports this year. We added 4 sports to begin this year, so competitive cheer, men's and women's tennis, and women's golf. We'll stay at 12 for another year or two, and then there's some thoughts about perhaps adding men's and women's soccer in 2019. So our chancellor is very pro-athletics and what it brings to the university in terms of enrollment, but furthermore, what athletics and the effect that it can have on young people. And I think, in my opinion, that's the most important reason to have it. But so we're growing. We run into a facility situation here, which is our biggest problem. When we add sports, we have to find a place to play them. And we've been fortunate that we've had people work with us. Our baseball team's at Newton Park. If we start soccer, we'll probably pursue that as well. Tennis is going to be out at Leaper Park. They've been very cooperative. City Parks and Rec has been great. So, that's not as big an issue as it could be because we have very cooperative and helpful and assisting groups working with us on that.
You're only as good as the people that you surround yourself with. Tom Norris, who you're Associate Athletic Director in Sports Information, as well as the rest of the coaches on the staff who you've hand-selected to be in the positions they're in. When you go into the mindset of bringing people into your organization or onto your team, you have to have people who have the same kind of mindset, but also a different mindset that they want to be able to bring in some new ideas and some fresh opinions to some of the things. So let's just talk about assembling a wonderful group of people who share the same vision, but also bring you some exciting other opportunities.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think the kind of the recruiting philosophy, for lack of a better term, is we want to have character first people in our program. That's something that I learned, and maybe that's very self-evident, and everybody should know that. But I learned that, back in the old days, that, and just in terms of basketball, stray off the path a little bit here, but it'll come right back to what you're talking about. When we recruit, it's character first, and then it's talent and work ethic second/third. And if without character, the second and third will get you killed. So, if you think about that, so you can have a basketball team, and you can have good players, and they can work hard, but if they don't have character, at some point they're going to short circuit. So that philosophy has remained the same in terms of building our staff here in the athletic department. Character first people, work ethic, talent, kind of a close second and third. And then your thought of fresh ideas. We don't want sameness, We want character first people, but we want people's creativity, and we want people's input, and that synergistic element that they talk about in the business world, where 1 + 1 = 3 or more, and that's kind of what we're after here as well.
From your base standpoint, you have to go back to growing up as a son of a father who was in the athletic business, who was a very, very successful coach. You also had a chance to coach at the Division I level. You're over at Valparaiso University, very successful stint there, and now you're here settling into this position. So you look back on your steps to be in this position, to be the leader of this institution athletically. You've had people along the way that have influenced you. As you reflect back on some of those influences, who are the people who have influenced you the most?
Well, I start with my father, certainly. I was just very fortunate to grow up in an environment where everywhere I turned there was good, And my dad was wise. I just gleaned much from him over the years, so he would be first. And then I've been around, I think, 3 coaches over the years that have been great. Don Meyer was a great Hall of Fame basketball coach at David Lipscomb University. His assistant coach by the name of Mike Roller, terrific coach. And then thirdly, I worked with a football coach in Kentucky named Dan Haley, who's a Hall of Fame football coach as well. And so all three of those, with my father, so four total, probably have been the foremost prominent people in terms of having an influence on me.
All right, let's turn our attention to the potential growth here and what you physically can do based upon the physical infrastructure that's the limitations that you do have, because you're kind of landlocked here, but still opportunities arise for more things. You've got one of the most dynamic and beautiful basketball, volleyball facilities in all of the Midwest in the Student Activities Center here. So you've got a wonderful draw here, and as we've had a chance to do games over the course of the last decade or so here, we see more and more of a fan base from the students showing up to games. So it's become a really, really neat environment. Can you talk about some potential growth opportunities that you may be able to do physically, as well as how do you encompass all of the students involved in athletics on a campus-wide scenario?
Okay, well, first of all, let me start with this. The addition of on-campus housing, which, believe it or not, has been 10 full years. But just the last year or two, on-campus housing has been at a peak in terms of enrollment over there. Actually, we had an overflow this past year. And so our university/housing director has done a great job at making housing a place that kids want to come and live in. And we hope that we can continue with overflow, because then that leads into the possibility of building more housing. And then, of course, the more students we have on campus, the more the campus kind of tips toward or in the direction of being a traditional college campus. And the more kids we have on campus, the more athletics, the teams that we have, the more teams that we have, the more athletes we have, and everything kind of gets into an upward spiral where we have more support from student body, et cetera.
All right, let's turn our attention to one of the fun things you get to do in the wintertime, and that's to coach the women's basketball team. Now, you've been here for a dozen years now, so you've kind of been around the block. You've seen other programs locally with coaches coming and going, but you've stayed firm. You've enjoyed your position here. Give us an idea what continues to motivate you to be a part of the women's basketball program, and it motivates you as a coach to stay competitive in one of the toughest leagues in the country, a league in the Chicagoland Collegiate Athletic Conference that 4 or 5 teams every year seem to go to the national tournament series.
Yeah, two things. One, again, as I was a younger coach, there was actually was an NAIA football coach named Frosty Westerling, and he wrote a book called Make the Big Time Where You're At. Now, at the time, that was a big book within the coaching circles, kind of a small paperback, and he talked about his experience. I think he's I was somewhere in Montana on the Northwest, and so coaching is coaching. It doesn't matter where you are. I love it here now. Again, as you said, this is my 12th year. I spent 7 years at Valparaiso, so I got to experience that, and that was neat. But coaching is coaching. I enjoy being a head coach, and so trying to make the big time where I'm at. The second thing is, and maybe the most important thing, again, this is something that I got from my father, is my responsibility goes far beyond just trying to win basketball games. And my responsibility is that the people that I come in contact with, the kids that we recruit, the kids on our team, I've got them here for hopefully 4 years, and hopefully if I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing when they leave, they've grown as a person. They're more service-oriented. They're more team-oriented. They've learned valuable lessons that athletics is able to teach them, and that I've had something to do with that. And I don't want to be someone who 20, 25 years from now, when someone say, "Hey, did you play college basketball?" "Yeah." "Who was your coach?" "I don't remember who my coach was." I don't want it to be that way. I want it to be a response where, I had a coach who cared about me. He was with me on the court, off the court, and he influenced my life in a positive way. If you can do that, it doesn't matter what occupation you have. I just happen to be a basketball coach. I mean, that's the crux right there. That's the critical point, I think, in living a happy, joyful life. And we all have the opportunity to do that in our own way.
All right, let's turn our attention to the women's basketball team for 2017-2018. As you look at your team from the top of the roster as well as your coaching staff, give us some ideas on your coaching staff, how they're melding with your student athletes. In addition, let's go up and down that roster, and who are you expecting big things from?
Okay, let's start with our coaching staff. Very pleased with the group we have. We hired Terry Leak this year. He's a local guy, a good basketball man. Works well with kids and is knowledgeable about what he's doing. He's been a very positive influence with us so far. Then we have Emily Macellari, who played for me for 5 years, coached last year. This will be her second year coaching. Has a very nice / keen eye for the game. Very competitive nature that she's able to, kind of influence into the girls. And then we've got a younger guy who's a student here named C.J. Kowalski, who's terrific, has been on our scout team the last couple of years. So I like our group of 4 coaches. We're all pointed in the same direction. We're all after the same thing. And those 3 understand the culture that we're trying to create. Then in terms of our roster, I have to be kind of cautious about how I say this, but this is the best group we've had. We've got depth and we've got talent, and we're really excited about our team. We came up short the other day because I didn't have them organized for sideline out of bounds with 3.5 seconds to go. I told them that in the locker room. We lost for these reasons. We had some breakdowns in our defense. Number 1, we turned it over a few times where we shouldn't. Number 2, and number 3, we hadn't worked special situations, so we had sideline out of bounds, and we didn't even get a shot, and that's my fault. So we're anyway, take that aside. We competed hard in the game, and we have a chance to be, I think, a very good basketball team. And you mentioned earlier the CCAC sends 5 or 6 teams to the national tournament every year. In my mind, as I sit here speaking with you right now, there's no reason we can't be one of those teams.
All right. When you look at the roster, is there a young lady on this roster that you're expecting great things from? Obviously, Paige Avery's been around here for forever. She's a senior. She's played a lot of minutes over the years. I know Vicky Gard has had a really promising freshman season. She's a sophomore now. So as you look up and down the roster, who's going to have to step up and continue their fine play?
Well, those are the 2 from last year that you would say. Just from looking at statistics, Paige is going to be a senior. She's a point guard. She had to carry us last year based on, the things that happened last year with injuries and such. So the good thing about that is we have added some nice, I'll just use coaching speak, pieces here. And that takes some pressure off her. Last year she had to do everything. I think she'll actually be a more productive player this year because she doesn't have to do everything. The game will come to her again, another kind of coach speak thing. Vicky had a great freshman year, and she's been off to a great start here in these 2 games. But we're really kind of reinforcing with other people. Jessie Alexander transferred from Saginaw Valley last year. She was a young lady I recruited out of Penn High School very hard.
Welcome here on Regional Radio Sports. Paul Condry with the head women's basketball coach at Indiana University South Bend, Steve Bruce. Coach, let's just talk about as you jump into year number 12 of your varsity coaching career here at at IU South Bend. As you look back on taking this job 12 years hence, what has been the thing that you're the most pleased about? And second part of that is, as you continue to develop your program, what is at the end game of getting this program to the national tournament and making this a national power?
Okay, 2 good questions. First, I think what I'm most pleased with are the people that have passed through the program. I think we've had 25 seniors, and I feel good about my relationship with all 25 of them, and that it's been a positive thing for them. The second answer to your second question is, we've got to do better basketball-wise. We can churn out better people and all that, and that's great. But we've got to get the combination a little bit better. We got to get to the national tournament and kind of break our way out of mediocrity, which we can, and we're planning on doing this year.
All right, a little bit of changes in your coaching staff. Let's go back and reintroduce some of those guys and gals who are doing yeoman's work on the sideline for you.
Okay, we have 3 new coaches. Well, that's not right. We have 2 new coaches this year, 3 assistant coaches total. One of our new coaches is a gentleman named Terry Leak, who is a local, actually a high school basketball official, high school football official, and works with one of the AAU programs here in town. They ran some of their program over here at the SAC. I saw him work with kids. I liked what he did. He had approached me one day wanting to get into college basketball, not knowing or interested in our situation, but asking about another opening, and that made me think, well, we've got an opening. So
Okay,
and
that works out well.
I approached him, and he's on board. Interesting dynamic there. His daughter is Erin Leak, who plays for Holy Cross. So he had to work his way through that in the decision making. Emily Macellari is with us for her 2nd year after playing here for 5 years. She's outstanding. And then we have a young man named C.J. Kowalski who had been on our scout team. In other words, the group of guys that we have come in that play against our gals. He's been on the scout team for the last 2 or 3 years in the nursing program here, a good basketball guy, and he's been a nice addition as well.
We're seeing that a lot with basketball coaches, especially women's coaches. I know it's one of the first persons who I remember doing it was Lori Culler over at Huntington University. She kept a relatively small roster, and then she brought guys in off campus, boys who played high school basketball that were pretty good, and they still wanted to play. So you get out some talented guys, go out there and play against some pretty talented gals. So it makes a very competitive situation. Talk about that dynamic and how that kind of mindset plays into getting your team better.
Well, it's been helpful to us. Now, we don't overdo it with them. We might get them twice a week, maybe just one time a week. But for instance, we play tomorrow at IU Northwest. We'll have them come in tonight. And so what we typically would do is we would kind of assign each person the role of someone on the team that we're going to play tomorrow. Maybe tape some numbers on jerseys, and they wear those jerseys. And then we say, okay, now CJ is number 24. Number 24 on this team is a dead 3. In other words, they're going to shoot more than 50% of their field goal attempts from outside the arc. They don't shoot many free throws, et cetera, et cetera. So then when we start playing live, we can identify who we're guarding, what their game is. And I think that, in my opinion, over the years, that's been the biggest thing in scouting. It's not so much what other teams do, though that's important to know, but it's who you're guarding and what their game is. And if kids can make threes, then you got to make them dribble. If kids can drive, then you got to make them, catch to a shot. So we use our scout team not only to play against our girls just because they're going to be stronger, bigger, faster, more athletic, that side of things that helps us, but also the specificity of the teams that we're getting ready to play and the personnel on those teams.
Okay, you've got a couple veterans coming back that have been the cornerstone. Paige Avery's one, and Vicky Gard, who had a great freshman season, is off to a solid sophomore campaign. So that's 2 gals to start with. Let's go up and down the Titans roster, and who are you expecting big things from?
Okay, well, we'll start with Paige and Vicky. Paige is a returning starter from she didn't start her freshman year, played behind Nicole Sly, but she got some valuable minutes. Started her sophomore year, started last year. With last year's team where we had injuries, et cetera, Paige played. I mean, it's hard to take her out of the game. There were some games where she's just gasping for oxygen, saying, "Coach, get me out." And I said, "No, you're stuck in there, girl." So, so she got great experience last year. She's a very good point guard. And I do think that the fact that we have more depth and more talent this year will actually kind of will help some way to make her a better player because she won't feel the pressure of having to do so many things. And then Vicky's been off to a great start. I think she had maybe 17 in the first game and 20 in our second game. I knew she was a terrific player in high school. We just got lucky when we got her. She had a great freshman year as honorable mention all-conference last year. She came from a very good program. Lake Central's a very good program. Those kids come out of there. They know how to play. They know how to compete. And they understand kind of the nuances of the game a little bit. So those are our 2 returners who we'll lean on for some productivity. And then we've got some new people. We've got a couple transfer kids. Jesse Alexander out of Penn High School will have 1 year with us. Went to Saginaw Valley, transferred, practiced with us last semester and will have 1 full year, as I just said. And she brings a lot of energy. I'm sure you saw her play when she was at Penn. She's outstanding. And then Kylie Kubik transferred from Grand Valley State, went to LaPorte High School, recruited her. Actually stopped recruiting her because I thought, well, this is a waste of my time, And then she ended up, whatever, not having the kind of experience there that she wanted. And so she came here. Right now she's starting at the 2 for us. Jess is starting at the 4 for us, by the way. So we're playing with 4 guards right now. So those are the 2 new transfer additions. Then we have a freshman class that I think is terrific. Another Lake Central girl, Kylie Furman, played really well on Saturday. Going to be a very good player. Taitlin Trenshaw, a little spark plug from Northwood High School, has an element of athleticism that I don't think we've had. Strong, tough, speed, all of those things. And then we've got a 5-player from Triton Central, southeast of Indianapolis, named Courtney Raymer, who has a chance to be, one of the best, if not the best 5s that we've had here. I shouldn't say that. Megan Calloway will probably always be the best 5 we've had here, but Courtney has a chance to be very good. So those are the 3 freshman additions, with the 2 transfers, with the 2 returners, and then Lauren Vukovic starting at the 5 for us as a junior this year. Solid player. That's not right. She's a good player. She's more than a solid player. She's doing a nice job, and we've got depth in other spots too. So long story short, I think we have more skill / talent and more depth than we've had ever in my 12 years, and so I hope we can coordinate all that, get everybody on the same page of we rather than me, and see what we can do.
All right, let's take a quick preview of the Chicagoland Collegiate Athletic Conference as it stands right now when we're taping this interview. Holy Cross is off to the best start in their school's history at 3-0. You guys are at 1-1 right now. Give us an idea where you're at, and how do you perceive this league as a whole?
Well, as always, the league's going to be very competitive. Over time, there have been the bottom of the league. I should say the bottom of the league has gotten better. The top of the league has stayed good. So consequently, Cal College has been down the last couple years. They're going to be better this year, but there are good and better teams in the CCAC. There are good teams and there are better teams. St. Xavier is going to be the front runner. They got 4 starters back from last year's team. St. Francis, though they lost some kids, Steve Brooks from Indiana Wesleyan's there. He'll do a good job. I think they were picked second in our league. Cardinal Stritch is a system team with a coach that's been there for a while, who does a great job. They're good no matter who they have on their team. Olivet's going to be good just based on the style that they play. So there's bang, 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 1, 2, 3, 4 right there. Now, typically you could lock those 4 right into the national tournament every year, and I don't see why that it would be any different this year. St. Ambrose they'll have a bounce back year, as you said. Amy's group at Holy Cross is off to a good start. But I expect us to be right in the hunt with all of those teams this year, and we're going to do our darndest to get to Iowa this year.
Once again, you can watch all of Indiana University South Bend women's basketball right here on Regional Radio Sports. For JP Jobert, I'm Paul Condry. This has been Regional Radio Sports.